behalf of Ed Carney, the Chamber President, we welcome you to the 2020 Candidate Forum. We want to thank the Apple Valley Chamber of Commerce Board, Bogarts, our gracious hosts, the City of Apple Valley for TV coverage beginning this weekend, Speed Pro Signs, and most of all, our candidates for their public service and wanting to improve Apple Valley and Dakota County. And I guess I'd have to say Minnesota. It is my honor to introduce Scott Catterlick, local CPA.
Good morning, welcome everybody. We are here to discuss the candidate forum for Senate 57. District 57 includes Apple Valley, Rosemount, Coates, a portion of northern Lakeville. The debate today will operate like this. You'll first get a 1-minute opening comment, then I will ask questions of each of you. After a couple of questions, you will be able to ask each other a question, and then you will have closing statements. Your responses and your questions are limited to 1 minute each. Tasha will be providing the timer. She will get a timing at 15 seconds and a stop sign. I will interrupt if you don't answer my question as I've asked it, but we will have a great time this morning. First of all, I'd like to introduce Senator Greg Clausen. Please tell us about yourself.
Well, thank you, Scott, and good morning. I'm Greg Clausen, and I'm seeking re-election to the Minnesota Senate. I would like to thank the Apple Valley Chamber for sponsoring this forum to share with the community candidates' backgrounds, qualifications, and position on issues. My background is in education. The majority of my years were spent in District 196 as a teacher, coach, system principal at Apple Valley High School, principal at Rosemount High School for 15 years, and as a district office administrator. My wife, Bobby, and I have been Apple Valley residents for over 35 years, raising 3 adult children, and we have 6 grandchildren. My entire life as an educator, a community member, and state senator has gathered around service and dedication to building a better tomorrow for future generations of Minnesotans. So why am I seeking re-election? I do not consider myself to be a politician, but rather a public servant. My focus is on how can I help the people in our community on issues they care about and make a positive difference in the lives of all Minnesotans. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Clausen. Jose Jimenez, please tell us about yourself.
Good morning, Scott, and good morning, everyone. Thank you very much, and thank you, Senator Clausen. It's a pleasure to be here. I've been living in Rosemount, the Apple Valley area for 21 years with my lovely bride of 33 years, Sandra Jimenez, and she's also running for 57B, and we both decided to step up and serve. We both founded a law firm as the Jimenez Law Firm in Rosemount. But as a young child, I grew up in the barrios of Chicago in a racially mixed neighborhood, and I was able to fight my way from the barrios of Chicago to the corporate boardrooms of Minnetonka. My parents always said that education was the way up and the way to success. So I fought hard and I got into Northwestern University, graduated with a bachelor's in electrical engineering, went on and got my MBA, and later went back to John Marshall Law School to get my law degree. I've been blessed by God to live the American dream. I've been a chief patent counsel of a medical device company in Minnetonka, and I've been a law partner at 2 law firms in the Twin Cities. I've also had a distinguished business career where I've learned the difficult lessons of having to run a business and fire and lay off people, so I know what it's like to make tough decisions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Just a quick background. I want you to know I'm not part of the media. You've probably already figured that out. I am a resident of Apple Valley, though. I am married, I have 2 daughters and 3 grandchildren. All of them have attended Apple Valley schools. I'm a former chair of the Apple Valley Chamber of Commerce. I'm a business owner, I'm a taxpayer, and I vote, just to let you know. We're going to begin with our first question with Senator Clausen. Senator Clausen, you have a passion for education and veterans. We've seen that through your legislation. What is the most important piece of legislation that doesn't include education and veterans that you've worked on in the past 4 years?
Well, thanks for that question, Scott. I get asked that about what do you consider to be your most important accomplishment? And I often respond with my ability to work across the aisle, actually. 75% of my bills have co-sponsors by Republicans. I'm very proud of that. I've worked hard to establish relationships with people. I'm a founding member of the Purple Caucus. It's 18 senators, half that are Republican, half that are Democrat, and we get together and try to find a common ground and how we might help each other. If we want to look at specific bills, I think my all-day kindergarten bill was one. I also have a bill to refinance student loans, which has been
Those are
very popular.
education. Those are education, other than education and veterans.
Yes. I also have passed some bills dealing with DWI, allowing conservation officers to issue DWI citations on roadways. Also, I rewrote the intoxicating substance definition of the DWI law here in Minnesota.
Great. Thank you, Senator. Mr. Jimenez, what is your number one priority for the state of Minnesota as a representative of District 57?
My number one priority, Scott, is to make an effort to make changes with the Met Council. I find that this year, we're dealing almost with probably $5 to $6 billion deficit, and with the Met Council, we have an organization of 4,200 employees that spends over $800 million. When it's an organization that could probably at this time, like someone has said, it's like the streetcar, maybe it's past its time. It served its purpose at the time, but I think it's now something that can be broken up and reduced in size, move some of the organization, the monies, and the employees to the other parts of the executive branch so that it can work closely with the legislative branch to figure out how to do these things for many of our cities and towns in the state of Minnesota.
Great. Thank you very much. Since you brought it up, let's talk about it. The Minnesota Office, and this is for Senator Clausen, the Minnesota Office of Management and Budget issued a report this summer that indicated that the state's budget deficit for the year's 2021 biennium could be $2.4 billion. That projection came just 3 months after the Minnesota Office of Management and Budget reported a $1.5 billion surplus for this year. Now, a planning estimate by the state indicates that the budget shortfall for the next biennium could be $4.7 billion. What are we going to do about it?
Good question. I think our first priority would be to get under control COVID-19. Until we have control of the pandemic, I think it's going to be difficult to restore the economy. I think first priority would be to look at spending. How do we reduce spending in our state? One of the things we'd ask is all agencies to look at a reduction of a 5%, 10%, whatever we'd like to see. And I think also we need to have conversations across the state of Minnesota on what are the values of Minnesotans. I think we need to enter into a relationship with the people in Minnesota and ask them, what's important to you? Where do you see that we spend our resources for the future?
Thank you very much. Mr. Jimenez, basically the same question. We're going to have a $2.4 billion deficit for 2021. For 22-23, we're expecting a $4.7 billion deficit. You're elected to go to the state Senate. What do you plan on doing about it?
Thank you, Scott. And I agree with Senator Clausen on a number of his points. I think starting off, though, we have to really work hard to reopen this economy. We can only do so much if the economy continues to stay closed. So if Governor Walz is willing to give up his emergency powers and work closely with the legislature and business associations to open it up safely and effectively, we can get that money flowing back. 50% of our revenues come from income tax. 25% come from sales tax. Those are going to be way down and continue to be way down if we do not open. Secondly, yes, we will have to do some cutting. Thirdly, let's encourage some investment. Onbridge, the Canadian company, is willing to spend $2.3 billion in our state for projects that will lead to 1,000 jobs. Let's encourage that investment. Those are the monies that we're going to need. Let's make that happen. And let's get both sides working together to make sure that we open the economy safely and get the money flowing into Minnesota.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Jimenez. Senator Clausen, the Minnesota legislature just passed a $1.9 billion bonding bill. Did you vote for it, and what did Apple Valley get out of as their part of this package?
I did vote in favor of the bonding bill. It was a long time coming. I think we worked on that for over a year. Some of the things that in our area would be the $13 million certainly for the Minnesota Zoo that we were able to pass. Also in the Rosemont area, $1 million for the Readiness Center, the Red Bull National Guard Center, $1 million. Those would be two of the big things in our area. We also worked with Dakota County Commissioners and got some money for the Veterans Trail that goes through Dakota County, the Billsby Dam. Those would be some of the things that we accomplished. In last session, we did the Readiness Center, which is a great project for Dakota County. It will help train law enforcement on mental health issues and autism, and that's in Inver Grove Heights.
Thank you very much, Senator. Mr. Jimenez, the 2020 legislative session ended in May without a bonding bill. The governor has held 5 special sessions in order to get this accomplished. Give last year's legislature a grade that has now passed a $1.9 billion bonding bill, and tell me about their performance and why.
I would have to give the last year's legislature probably a C plus from the standpoint of we started spending with the bonding bill. I was hoping that they would hold off on the bonding bill until the next legislative session, because now they pulled funds back from the new legislative session to fund some of the projects on the new bonding bill. So that's taking money away that we need to drive down the deficit. Secondly, this going back and forth was hurtful for the taxpayers, and we needed to find a way to get together quicker in order to make that happen. I was asked once, if you were in the position of the governor, what would you have done in the March-April timeframe? I would have said, power back to the legislature. We have got to work together to make this happen. Let's work together to reopen the economy so that the money starts to flow again. And I'm hoping that if I'm given an opportunity in January to go into the legislature, that we're going to find ways to create those relationships to start working together for the benefit of our citizens, not for the benefit of our parties.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jimenez. Now we're going to do something that you probably haven't done yet on the campaign trails. You get to ask each other a question. Take 1 minute to ask the question, 1 minute to respond. We're going to start with Senator Clausen asking the question.
Well, thank you. Jose, you probably recognize this as a flyer that you sent out to people.
I do.
It talks more about me in a negative tone than it does talk about you and what you accomplish. I do have a problem with one of the comments that you make. It says, I sided with radical protesters by opposing penalties for mobs shutting down traffic on interstate. And that's in the Senate Journal, Monday, May 14th, 2018, entry 2923. And I have a copy of that if you'd like to see it. Mm-hmm. It plainly shows I voted in supporting greater penalties for shutting down freeways. The other 2 comments are also misleading. Why would you lie about my voting record? Why would you do that?
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Clausen, for that question. We did our own research, and we had come down with different conclusions. Those were pretty large and pretty detailed bills as well. But it also says that you also voted for an alternative policy for traditional policing. And you have not, in the whole time that all the violence has happened in Minneapolis and St. Paul, have you condemned Governor Walz and members of your party, and you let that happen. And we have citizens here in Rosemont and Apple Valley that watching this violence spill into our areas, and you continue to stay silent and complicit. I think it's time to stand up and say, my allegiance is to the people of my district and to the state, not to my party. And we need to call out the people in my party that are not doing the right things for the people in the state. We have a constitutional obligation to protect the citizens of Minnesota, not to protect the members of our party.
Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Jimenez.
Just a comment that that bill that I just said that you didn't really represent, I broke with my party to vote with Republicans on that. And I'd appreciate a retraction. You'll still have time to do that.
Okay, well, thank you.
Mr. Jimenez, your question for Senator Clausen.
Senator Clausen, the Pine Bend Refinery in Rosemont, Coates employs over 1,000 people with good paying jobs and is a strong contributor to the tax base in our district. Back in May of 2018, I think it was SF 3510, you voted against the Onbridge L3 pipeline, but Onbridge is the major oil supplier to the refinery. And without the new pipeline, operations and jobs at the refinery will be at risk. As a proud endorsed candidate, the DFL Environmental Caucus, which embraces the Green New Deal and which has vowed to stop the L3 pipeline at all costs, will you stand with the voters of our district to reject the caucus and support the L3 pipeline?
You mentioned a vote that was taken. I don't recall that vote. But I have gone on record to say that we do need to replace that pipeline. That pipeline was actually put into the ground in the 1960s. It's failing. We need to replace that pipeline so that we continue to supply crude oil that can be refined here in our area. So that would be my position on that. Do I support environmental issues? Absolutely. But this is one that is an environmental issue. We can't afford to have oil spills in our farmland in northern Minnesota, across central Minnesota. So I do support the building of that replacement pipeline.
Great. Thank you, Senator Clausen. Now we're going to take 1 minute of a closing remark. Please start, Senator Clausen.
Well, it's been an honor and a privilege to serve the communities of Apple Valley, Rosemont, Northeast Lakeville, and Coates in the Senate. I've worked hard to earn the public's support and trust and will continue working to make a difference in the lives of Minnesotans and the future of our state. I'm often asked, what are your legislative accomplishments you are most proud of? And that question was asked here today. And again, my immediate response is my ability to work across the aisle to get things done. Over 75% of my bills have bipartisan support. I'd like to end by thanking our community heroes through these difficult and uncertain days. Our medical workers, first responders, teachers, law enforcement officers, food workers, truck drivers, military personnel, mail carriers, farmers, utility workers, and so many others who are making a difference in our lives. Working together, we can build Minnesota's future and improve the lives of all Minnesotans. If you would like to learn more about my candidacy, I would ask that you go to my website, which is clausenforsenate.com. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Clausen. Mr. Jimenez, 1 minute.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Senator Clausen. Thanks again to the Chamber for being such great hosts, and thanks to all of you for tuning in. It's important that all of you become very informed for the next issues for the next 2 weeks. I would like to take this opportunity as well to thank Senator Clausen for his many years of service in our district, as he has served as well. As many of you know, our district has changed quite a bit in the last 8 years, demographically, age, and whatnot. And now it's time for fresh new ideas to tackle the challenges that we have ahead of us. Our budget deficit will be difficult, but not insurmountable. The divisions we face as Minnesotans and as Americans are also challenging, but at our core, we have many shared values that will allow us to come together. Finally, please remember, a vote for the status quo is a vote to keep lockdowns in place and a divided government, while a vote for me is a vote for balanced government and an ability to keep the executive branch in check. I hope I've earned your vote today, and I hope I can be your new senator in St. Paul as of November 3rd. Thank you very much.
Thank you again to the Apple Valley Chamber of Commerce for providing voters with additional insight, Bogarts for hosting, the City of Apple Valley for filming, mostly our candidates for their public service, and a reminder that each race is being filmed individually, separately as its own TV show. I want to thank everybody for listening today, and have a wonderful day.